Majin Buu had never suffered such a big loss. In ancient times, he had dominated the universe. Even old Kai could only fall down with hatred. Although he was ruthlessly ravaged by Ayaka after breaking the seal, that was because Ayaka was stronger than him. It was fine if he was bullied, but what was this silly-looking thing in front of him? He was definitely not as smart as him. Just based on him, he dared to hurt the terrifying demon. He was just a fellow who was on par with him, but he actually bit off a piece of his flesh. Majin Buu had never suffered such humiliation before, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Ah! Bastard, I am really angry this time. An almost tangible pressure spread out from Majin Buu's body, and in the blink of an eye, it enveloped the earth. The dark clouds were summoned by the terrifying aura, and lightning shuttled back and forth, creating an oppressive atmosphere. Crap, Majin Buu has been completely enraged. Hongye and the others, who had sensed the change in the atmosphere, became anxious before they even arrived at the scene. Hongye's eyes kept rolling. She looked helplessly at Ayam who was beside her. Ayaka had only left Earth for 2 days, and such a big thing had happened. She did not know how to explain it to her sister. Hongye was extremely angry. She suddenly accelerated, drawing a beautiful ray of light in the sky. If she were to see the person who had provoked Majin Buu, she would definitely let him taste the cruelest punishment. Vegeta also sensed the change in Majin Buu, and a cold smile remained on her face. From the aura of Majin Buu, it could be seen that the other party had forced him into a corner. There is still someone on Earth who can anger Majin Buu to such an extent. Could it be another guy from the universe? Ayaka and Kakarot were not on Earth. Majin Buu and the other guy who had angered Majin Buu would definitely be handed over to him to deal with. This was an opportunity for him to use his trump card. Vegeta felt that he was getting closer and closer to the Super Saiyan 3. Boom! A clap of thunder. Sparkling lightning was rolling in the dark clouds, and a terrifying chill spread out. In the distance, the rivers were surging, the waves were overflowing, and the towering mountains were trembling. The earth layer was overturned, and the exposed rock frame was already riddled with cracks. In the distant sky, it was gloomy. Pang, 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 sand, and rocks. The middle of the battle was already overflowing with energy, and it was chaotic and unclear. After streaks of lightning passed, a terrifying energy swept across the earth, leaving behind countless deep and terrifying ravines. His strength was at the level of Majin Buu and Janemba, and his every move was extraordinary. The two sides were fighting, and Majin Buu, who was in an angry state, had already suppressed Janemba. Both of them did not have high IQ, but their combat talent was extremely strong. Perhaps it was because they had not yet reached the peak of their first life, Janemba was gradually no match for Majin Buu. Woof! The puppy's voice was very soft, but it was enough to attract the attention of Majin Buu. Looking at it, in the valley 1,000 meters away from the center, the stray dog was suspended in the air protected by a layer of green energy film, shouting at Janemba. Don't hurt the puppy. As this thought flashed through his mind, Majin Buu pulled Janemba to fly further away. However, how could Janemba let him do as he wished? He rolled his eyes and dragged Majin Buu in the opposite direction. Janemba, Janemba. With a low cry, millions of glittering rays of light fell down like raindrops and flew towards the puppy. With a low cry, the energy membrane protecting the stray dog was broken, and the bright beam of light instantly penetrated the puppy's body. No! Seeing that the stray dog had been pierced through, Majin Buu's face twisted. The steam from the small holes on his head became even more violent. After a chaotic roar, Majin Buu began to speed up, as if he had crossed the space in an instant. Janemba was stunned. The person in front of him had already arrived at the stray dog. Majin Buu's expression became extremely ugly, as if he was enduring something. He reached out his hand and stroked the stray dog. I will treat you. A cluster of light flashed, and the stray dog recovered again. It stuck out its tongue and licked. Quickly, quickly leave, hide far away. Silently saying this, Majin Buu threw the stray dog to tens of thousands of meters away. Whoo! Thick smoke sprayed out from the top of Majin Buu's head, condensing into a thick layer of air above, which was full of evil aura. Janemba looked at it and blinked his eyes. Fatty Buu panted as he powerlessly looked at the gradually gathering smoke in the sky. In the distance, Janemba was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey, drooling as he looked at that ball of evil energy. Bang! A skinny figure appeared. As soon as he appeared, he jumped to Fatty Buu's side and kicked him hard. Fatty Buu was immediately sent flying by the kick. Originally, Majin Buu was only comparable to Super Saiyan 3. Now that the appearance of Lean Buu had taken away nearly 60 of his strength, Fatty Buu's energy immediately weakened, but he still had the strength of the peak of Super Saiyan 2. Skinny Buu's withered body seemed to fall at any time. He turned with his intuition and noticed Janemba not far away. His instinct told him that the other party was very dangerous. Recover your strength first. Janemba was already on par with Majin Buu. Now that Majin Buu was divided into two people, he was naturally not Janemba's opponent. Therefore, the first thing that Skinny Buu thought of was to absorb Fatty Buu and recover to his peak. Then, he would think of a way to deal with Janemba. It was best to absorb him. When he thought about how he had kicked Fatty Buu away in a moment of impulse, his expression changed. The ideal was plump. Skinny Buu's plan was very good, but Janemba would not let him do as he wished. To him, the evil thin Buu was more attractive than Fatty Buu. Just as Skinny Buu was about to absorb Fatty Buu, Janemba took the initiative to attack him. Fatty Buu was not stupid. Taking advantage of the fact that Skinny Buu was fighting Janemba, his mind turned and he actually fled in the opposite direction. On the way, he picked up the stray dog he had thrown tens of thousands of meters away and flew in the direction of Hongye and the others. At this time, Fatty Buu also had to seek protection. Undoubtedly, Hongye and Iam were the first choice. Not long after, Hongye and the others appeared in the air. It was as if Fatty Buu had found the axis and sped up. Hongye also saw Fatty Buu flying towards them. She was surprised to find that Majin Buu's ki had been reduced by more than half. Looking ahead, there were still two evil auras there. One of them was Majin Buu. Hongye thought for a moment. Her memory from Ayaka made her keenly discover the difference between Fatty Buu and her face could not help but reveal an elegant smile. Majin Buu still split into Fatty Buu and Skinny Buu. Fatty Buu was an innocent and kind person. Hongye did not need to be on guard against him. After learning what had just happened from Fatty Buu, Hongye was stunned. The evil Fatty was still fighting with Skinny Buu. She immediately felt that something was wrong. Janemba had run to earth. She had some understanding of Janemba's strength. Majin Buu might be able to fight when he was at his peak, but it was definitely not something that the separated Skinny Buu could deal with. Come to think of it, if it were for just an ordinary evil fellow fighting, Hongye might be happy to see it, but the problem was that Skinny Buu and Janemba were too special. One was Majin Buu's evil clone, or in other words, his main body. The other was the gathering of the evil energy of hell, and they all had terrifying powers. No matter who devoured the other party, it would make the situation difficult to end. To say the least, even if the two ended up mutually injured, the impact on Earth was immeasurable. Hongye analyzed the situation, and Iam immediately became anxious. If Earth was hurt, how could he explain it to his mother? We must stop them. At least we can't let them fight on Earth. Launch and Android nodded in agreement. The matter was very serious, and the Earth might also be destroyed. But according to Fat Buu's description, the two sides fighting are not ordinary people. At this time, they couldn't help but sigh. The strongest Ayaka, Son Goku, and Bardock were actually not on Earth at the critical moment. It was too difficult for them to suppress Skinny Buu and Fat Buu at the same time with their strength. A few more rays of light flew in the sky, and Vegeta and Piccolo also rushed over. After a brief account of the reason and learning of the terror of the other party, Krillin shrank his neck and looked nervous. Hey, why do strange guys always appear on Earth? Piccolo thought of the guy formed from the evil energy of hell and couldn't help but shiver. However, Vegeta was different. He licked the corner of his mouth and could not help but not be scared back. His face even revealed an excited expression as he said, "Interesting, leave them to me to deal with." After he finished speaking, he impatiently flew towards Janemba and the others. To him, a powerful enemy was only a step forward. The more he fought with an expert, the more he would be able to surpass Kakarot. "Uncle Vegeta, don't move alone." Son Gohan shouted anxiously when he saw that Vegeta was going ahead alone. Hongye pulled Son Gohan, "Let him be. This is Vegeta's personality. You can't stop him. His idea is not wrong. This battle might be the opportunity for you and I am to become Super Saiyan 3. And, when we get there later, we will tie up Skinny Buu and Janemba. At this time, Launch and Lancey will take the opportunity to launch an instant movement. We must take them away from Earth." Launch Lancey nodded seriously. As long as Skinny Buu and Janemba were held back, they would immediately activate instant movement. The time to activate instant movement was very short, but it was also very easy to be disturbed. After Hongye explained, everyone agreed. Then, they flew in the direction of the battle. Fatty Buu looked at it for a moment, then descended to the ground and put the stray dog down. The puppy barked in a low voice. "Stay here obediently. I'll come and find you after the matter is over." After that, he followed Hongye and the others. On the other side, Skinny Buu had just gotten rid of the wave of evil thoughts. He was a little out of breath. In his heart, he was extremely annoyed that he had kicked Fatty Buu away. Behind him, the sound of Janemba shouting like an idiot was heard again. "Damn it!" Skinny Buu had a ferocious expression on his face. However, 60 of his strength was no match for Janemba. He wanted to take advantage of the chaos to scheme and absorb the other party. However, Janemba looked silly, but his battle was flawless. He did not give him a chance to attack. At this time, whoosh! A figure suddenly flew towards them. The eyes of Skinny Buu, who was unable to resist the evil thoughts wave, suddenly lit up. Vegeta's strength at the peak of Super Saiyan 2 was not inferior to Fatty Buu. "Devour him. Devour him and you will be able to recover to your peak." As soon as the thought was produced, it continued to spread like a poppy. His wonderful thought was that as long as he swallowed the person in front of him, not only would he be able to recover his full strength, he might even be able to devour evil thoughts wave. That was a super comeback. Thin Buu's eyes were bright, as if he had foreseen the power of his invincible state. If the plan was successful, it would be power beyond his peak. Skinny Buu was impatient and was about to move, but he was shocked to find that his body was unable to move, and when he looked at it, Janemba had already disappeared. Not good. Skinny Buu's heart suddenly tightened, and the premonition of danger filled his nerves. "Break down and move." The voice of an idiot rang out, but when he heard it, it was as terrifying as a nightmare. A dreamy bubble appeared beside him, colorful and dazzling. He knew that Janemba had broken down his body while he was not paying attention, and the place where he appeared again was where he was, and it was tightly wrapped around him. He sadly found that Janemba wanted to devour him, and he could no longer break free. No. In the painful wailing, Janemba's bloated body appeared, and he was tightly wrapped in it. Although he was extremely unwilling, he could no longer escape the fate of being devoured. Just a moment ago, he was still fantasizing about him devouring the evil consciousness wave, but in the blink of an eye, he was swallowed by the other party. How sad was this? After gradually merging the Skinny Buu into his body, the Majin Buu wave suddenly opened its eyes wide and shouted in satisfaction, Majin Buu, Majin Buu. His body suddenly erupted with a dazzling light like a star, and an extremely terrifying energy spread out. Crap, Skinny Buu has been devoured. I am shouted angrily. The evil thoughts were moving so fast that it was too late to stop them. In the distant outer space, after a few years of development, Spirit Leaf Force had already extended out of the scope of North Area. In the entire big star system, he was a super force that was like a giant monster. In a certain galaxy in the West Area, Raditz and Nappa commanded the vanguard army to sweep through the galaxy all the way, and the limelight was no different. Unlike working under Frisia, they were leading the Imperial Army to overthrow the evil rule of governance. Every time they thought of what they had done for the evil Frisia, their hearts could not help but repent. They woke up in the middle of the night and touched their chests. Well, let's apply some benevolence again. Today, the planet under Raditz's command was decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was extremely joyous. Raditz did not expect that his father, who he had long believed to have died in battle, would actually appear alive in front of him. Moreover, he had come to see him with his younger brother Kakarot. Raditz was extremely excited and hurriedly ran forward with a few stunned little guys beside him. These little guys were Raditz's children. 7 years had passed, and he and Nappa had already married and had children, living a happy life. Nappa carried a wine barrel and drank. His qualifications were much better than Raditz, and he could be considered outstanding. At this moment, power level had also surpassed the previous Saiyan people, reaching 2 million power level. Even though it had never risen after reaching 2 million. Hee, Uncle Bardock, you and Kakarot came at the right time. Nappa boldly shouted. Suddenly, he thought of something and said to Raditz, Raditz, aren't we going to war on planet Vegeta? Why don't we ask Uncle to come with us? Raditz's face was glowing red and he looked very relaxed. Hearing Nappa's suggestion, his eyes immediately lit up and he said with a smile, now that you mention it, I remember. Father, planet Vegeta is constantly in a state of chaos. We were planning to go on an expedition, but you happen to be here. Why don't you come with Kakarot to planet Vegeta? When it came to the expedition to planet Vegeta, Raditz's words were filled with anticipation. This was different from working under Frieza. Right now, what he was doing was to eliminate the rule of the evil forces. He was righteous and righteous. Even the West Kai of the West Area and the other planets hoped that they could go early. Since they had a clear standpoint and could perform well in front of their father, why not? Alright, let me take this opportunity to see your skills. Bardock raised his glass and drank with a satisfied expression. He knew the potential of Raditz and Nappa very well. Obviously, they would not have much combat strength. Therefore, he would use the standards of planet Vegeta to measure them. Although the standards were lowered, he still had great expectations for his eldest son. When Raditz heard this, he immediately grinned and puffed out his chest. He was very confident in his own strength. The next day, Raditz led 100 or so battleships to form a small fleet to sail toward the planet. The planet was a planet in the West Area. According to power level, it was a middle-level planet that was close to a high-level planet. The fleet started the engine and passed through many star systems. It only took a day to reach the planet. Raditz pointed to a green planet in front of him and said, Father, that is planet Vegeta. A few years ago, it was captured by a group of people from the universe. The order we received was to liberate this place. The order that Raditz spoke of was the result of the negotiation between West Kai and North Kai. North Area and Spirit Leaf Force helped to eliminate the colonists on the planet and enjoyed the right of trade. In fact, they included planet Vegeta under the jurisdiction of Spirit Leaf Force. As Kai, North Kai could only complain a few times, but North Kai in the north earned a lot of face. Nappa moved his wrist and said arrogantly, Uncle Bardock, watch carefully. I can take care of this planet in a few minutes. Let's wait and see. Bardock smiled. The spaceship slowly landed. A loud boom startled the wild animals around it. Opening the hatch, Raditz jumped out, and Nappa followed closely behind. Kakarot, how long do you think Raditz will need to deal with this planet? Bardock asked as he breathed in the fresh air of the outside world. In fact, Son Goku had some resistance to conquering planets. However, Raditz and Nappa had already changed their ways. The planets that they conquered were all ruled by terrible people. Thus, there was no objection. When he heard Bardock's question, he used his ki to sense the entire planet. He said calmly, "The strongest ki on this planet is in the north. The power level is not more than 10,000. If Big Brother takes action, he can solve it in a few seconds. Including some random guys, it will take at most 10 minutes. Vegeta smiled and nodded. Kakarot's current achievements made him happy, and Raditz's growth made him look at him in a different light. Sure enough, 7 or 8 minutes later, Raditz and Nappa, who had eliminated several powerful people on planet Vegeta, flew back from different directions. Nappa complained as he flew, it wasn't satisfying enough. They all fell before they could even exert a bit of strength. The power level is not a common person who has more than 10,000, do you think you can run into him just because you want to? If you want to fight, why don't you look for Kakarot? He will definitely make you satisfied. After hearing this, Nappa timidly shrank his head and smiled embarrassedly, I don't want to be abused. Then, he shouted at his subordinates in an imposing manner, what are you looking at? Same old rules. First Brigade cleans the east, second and third respectively. Bardock and Son Goku couldn't help but burst out laughing. All of a sudden, an aura flashed past, and Bardock keenly sensed it. His expression changed, and his brows furrowed. What's wrong, father? Raditz couldn't help but ask softly when he saw Bardock's expression change. Bardock raised his finger, and Raditz immediately didn't dare to act rashly. He looked at Kakarot, only to see that Kakarot was the same as his father, his expression extremely grave. What kind of experts were his father and younger brother? Seeing them all act like this, Raditz immediately shivered. Could it be that planet Vegeta is not as simple as it seems? Be careful. Son Goku shouted, and with a teleport, he appeared in front of Nappa and kicked him away. Nappa had no time to react. He was sent flying. When he turned around, he saw that the place he had been standing on had turned into scorched earth. Lava was flowing, and cold sweat was seeping out. Nappa couldn't help but take a deep breath. He sighed at his luck. If not for Kakarot's quick reaction, he would have turned into a pile of charcoal. Who is it? Come out. Bardock shouted with an ugly expression on his face. To nearly lose his life in front of him, Bardock felt that this provocation was too serious. He was already furious. A few breaths later, seeing that no one responded, Bardock was even more furious. His thick aura spread out with him as the center. The golden flames burned fiercely, turning into Super Saiyan 3. Feeling the suffocating pressure, Raditz's eyes were about to crack and his expression was extremely shocked. The corners of his mouth were muttering, but he was unable to say anything. That domineering and boundless godlike person was his father. Uncle Bardock is actually this strong. Nappa felt his entire body tremble. Suddenly, a red figure entered his line of sight. When he saw who it was, Son Goku's expression changed drastically. He took a step forward and blocked in front of Raditz. Lightning flashed and he also transformed into a Super Saiyan 3 state. His entire body was wrapped in golden energy, but Son Goku was unprecedentedly serious. He shouted repeatedly, the other party is very terrifying. Even my father and I might not be able to stop him. Hurry up and leave this planet. Kakarot, with your and Uncle Bardock's strength you are not a match. Nappa was already stunned by Bardock and Son Goku's Super Saiyan 3 state. He suddenly heard that even if they joined forces, they would not be able to stop the other party. His face could not help but turn pale. Listen to Kakarot, hurry up and leave. At this time, Vegeta's eyes were like a sharp blade. Raditz and Nappa were people who had been through a long time of war. How could they not know that they would only be a burden if they stayed with Nappa? They immediately followed Nappa and left uneasily. Alright, you must be careful. Soon, a few spaceships flew out of the atmosphere. After confirming that the spaceships had left, Bardock let out a sigh of relief and shifted his gaze away, gradually closing in on Son Goku. Who are you? Bardock shouted. The bright red figure moved its body. Its bronze-colored muscles were full of strength. As it shook and swayed, it stirred up strong winds and waves. Its red hair was like the sickle of the god of death. The most eye-catching thing was the dark red patterns that gathered on its forehead that were as complex as stars. Majin Buu was just like a child compared to him, it was too terrifying. Vegeta and Son Goku looked at each other and saw shock in each other's eyes. Because the other party's complexion was restrained, they were unable to grasp the other party's identity for a while. Hee, our Garen, we didn't expect to meet two interesting fellows as soon as we broke through hell. And, your strength is not bad. If you submit to us, we can let you live. Garen said with a relaxed expression. From hell? Bardock frowned. He had lived in hell for countless years and had a clear understanding of the distribution of hell. He had never heard of this powerhouse called Garen. Even hell did not have such a strong guy. Father, finish this quickly. Son Goku's eyes were like lightning, full of fighting spirit. The temperature suddenly became cold. An invisible collision of air walls appeared between the two camps. The momentum suppressed the city and was about to explode at any moment. Suddenly, the three of them attacked in unison. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. An unprecedented collision erupted. The terrifying storm brewed and quickly spread to the corners of the entire planet. Super Saiyan 3 had undoubtedly reached the highest level of the current Saiyan. Son Goku and his son did not make any unnecessary movements. The golden light soared into the sky, and they directly pounced forward. One punch and one kick fell like a storm. In a battle between experts, everything was simple. The attack was simple, and the defense was even more so. The former was slightly confused by the other party's movements, but the latter was a very simple action. As soon as they exchanged blows, Garen's strength was beyond Son Goku and Bardock's expectations. In the face of their continuous attacks, Garen only used one hand to break down one person's moves. After several successive attacks, he easily resolved them. Occasionally, he would kick out a kick, sending the two of them flying with a bang. Son Goku retreated a certain distance and said with a frown, "This is troublesome." Bardock also had a dark expression on his face. He was not happy in his heart. Only after exchanging blows did he realize that the gap between them was so great. He had failed to test the other party's bottom line when he struck with Kakarot. Garen was simply unfathomable. Outside, Raditz's spaceship flew quickly and quickly left the planet domain where the planet was located. Looking at the planet that was gradually disappearing, Raditz and Nappa did not say anything. Their hearts were unusually heavy. I hope Father and Kakarot will be safe and sound. Raditz thought weakly. No matter whether it was a storm or a storm in the outside world, Supreme Kai's planet was always sunny and bright. It was a beautiful scene. Originally, Ayaka planned to return to Earth after releasing Old Kai. However, she could not resist the urging of Senior Old Kai and Old Kai, so she stayed in Supreme Kai's planet for 3 days. She did not know that in these 3 days, 2 people with terrifying strength appeared in the lower realm space. The universe was once again in turmoil. Is Supreme Kai not going to stay for a while longer? Kibito said in a respectful tone. At this time, he also knew how Ayaka obtained the position of Supreme Kai, and his tone was extremely respectful. Ayaka shook his head. No, Majin Buu is still on Earth, I'm afraid he will cause some trouble. Hearing that it was related to Majin Buu, old Kai became serious. Majin Buu staying on Earth is a problem, and we still need Supreme Kai to take care of him. Of course. At this time, old Kai received a call from North Kai from the lower realm. Her finger pointed at the void a few times. When she opened the call, the anxious voice of North Kai immediately sounded. Something bad has happened on Earth. Ayaka was not sure about North Kai's attitude. Sometimes, things that were not considered troublesome to her were things that could cause the sky to collapse. She pondered, what could happen? When old Kai heard this, he immediately thought of Majin Buu. He thought that Majin Buu had caused trouble in the lower realm again, but Ayaka knew that it was impossible. With Hongye and the others, Majin Buu could not stir up any waves. Old Kai asked, what exactly happened? This was the first time that North Kai had spoken to the high and mighty old Kai. His tone was a little shaky. This should have been reported by Grand Kai. Since the situation was urgent, he had overstepped his authority. Even Majin Buu was devoured by that guy. No one on Earth could stop that guy anymore. What? Majin Buu was devoured? The old Kai and Kibito were shocked. Their minds went blank. That was Majin Buu, the most terrifying person in the universe. How could he be devoured? Ayaka frowned and said, Janemba? Yes, yes. That guy is called Janemba. Ayaka, do you know him? Don't be rude to Supreme Kai. Old Kai frowned and scolded. Then, he thought about it. Even the terrifying Majin Buu had been swallowed up. His strength was no less than that of the demon Benito at his peak. He stared at the demon and obviously thought of the consequences of this disaster. Supreme Kai. North Kai's voice was full of doubts, but now he couldn't care so much. When the Janemba first arrived on Earth, it was just as strong as Skinny Buu. And since it swallowed Skinny Buu split from Majin Buu, it evolved and became invincible. Wait, you said Majin Buu split? Ayaka was a little surprised. He didn't expect Majin Buu to split into Fat Buu and Skinny Buu like in the original story. Yes. Ayaka pondered for a moment and said, Janemba is a combination of the evil energy of hell, and his strength is not inferior to Majin Buu. Now that he has evolved once again, he has become even more difficult to deal with. My confidence is not very high. Old Kai, Senior Old Kai, you don't have to go. Alas. Old God North Kai was very self-aware. He sighed and decided to stay with East God North Kai in the God world. Great God North Kai, I'll leave everything to you. East God North Kai bowed respectfully. Ayaka nodded with a smile. The void was blurred, and he activated teleportation to return to Earth. In a flash, the sky was filled with all kinds of energy. Bright explosions and explosions immediately rippled out. Violent winds blew violently, and the ordinary air shattered like a mirror. Boom! A loud noise like a bell rang through the sky. Sand, stone, and dust flew everywhere. The scene was in chaos. A figure flashed quickly. Then, Vegeta screamed and spat out blood. He flew out from the center and hit the ground heavily. Hongye was anxious and quickly called everyone to attack together. So everyone responded and attacked Janemba with full force. For a time, colorful energy spread across the sky and attacked the center. The scene was spectacular. Boom! The fireball rose into the air and rose up to 10,000 meters in the sky. The dazzling light spread out and illuminated a corner of the planet. The earth trembled as if it were foreaware of the arrival of the apocalypse. The center of the temple operated quickly and released a large amount of energy to offset the damage on the planet. The sparse air seemed to have been dispersed a lot, and the air pressure suddenly dropped. It was unknown how long it lasted. The Dragon Ball warriors staggered and were exhausted. On the other hand, in the second form, the robust red body was still powerful. Other than a little dust on the light purple armor, it was not damaged at all. Incredible. After releasing so much energy, you don't feel tired at all. There is still a steady flow of energy in your body. Janemba laughed wildly. In his second form, he was no longer the pale idiot from before. His thinking ability had reached the standard of a normal person. He did not expect that after absorbing the skinny Bew, he would have such a big change. Not only did his IQ suddenly open, but his energy had also reached its peak. Janemba said disdainfully, "It is a sin to be humble and weak. You all should not exist. Go to the underworld and report it. Damn it." Homye's expression was solemn, and her beautiful face was covered with crystalline beads of sweat. Super 3 states consume too much energy. I have to end this quickly. Gohan, continue attacking. N. The two of them replied. Their exhausted bodies once again surged with brilliance, but they were much weaker than before. Whether it was Homye or Son Gohan, their attacks had slowed down by more than half. They knew very well that if this continued, they would lose sooner or later. The only ones who could maintain their full power were android sisters. They were androids who had transformed their human bodies into their original forms. They could also improve power level through cultivation, but they could not improve quickly. However, as androids, they had their own advantages. That was, eternal energy. If it continued to develop for a long time, it would definitely be a terrifying trump card. However, they were dealing with Janemba. The current energy was too small and could not cause any physical damage. Whoa! Janemba made his move. After the strength test was completed, he did not hold back. *T. Son Gohan's expression changed drastically, but it was already too late. Crack! The bones broke, and Son Gohan's ankle was deformed. Then, he flew out. Son Gohan. Homye's heart skipped a beat, and the anger in her chest burned fiercely. Janemba laughed coldly and attacked the others. With a few muffled sounds, Launch and the others flew out and fell to the ground, unable to get up again. Ah! Homye roared. A powerful energy burst out, followed by an incomparably fast and violent attack. For a moment, Janemba seemed to be suppressed. However, the good thing did not last long. Janemba's eyes flashed with a dim light. An evil aura spread out and his entire body disappeared. Rapid energy cannon. Brutal destruction. All the dark elemental energy in the alternate dimension gathered together to form an extremely large dark ball with astonishing energy. Janemba licked his lips and ruthlessly threw the large dark ball out. The power was extremely great. Boom! An earth-shattering energy erupted. Due to the close distance and the magic restricting their movements, it was already too late for them to escape. Homye was very unwilling to be submerged by the terrifying energy. The surging energy was like a ferocious tiger. It was extremely overbearing. Homye had no time to defend herself. The pure and broken dark energy was like a river that gathered around her, tightly wrapping her. It was airtight. The dark elemental energy had a unique strong corrosive effect. The tingling pain immediately spread throughout her body. Homye was shocked. She quickly activated the power in her body. She saw a sharp and bright light flash slightly. With a whoosh, the dark elemental energy was opened up into a small hole. Homye did not dare to hesitate and rushed out from her small mouth. As soon as she rushed out of the energy flow, her body stopped. Then, she dodged a few times and escaped from the black area where the dark tide surged. What should we do? Homye panted as she stopped in the air. Her dark green eyes were alert. After a round of examination, she found that the current situation was very unfavorable to them. The Dragon Ball warriors were basically too busy to do anything. Son Goku, Lancey, and the others were also seriously injured. If it were for said that only Vegeta, Android 18, Android 17, and herself could barely fight. On the other hand, Janemba at this time was in high spirits, not declining at all. Facing such an enemy, it really made people feel deeply powerless. At this time, she really hoped that Ayaka was by her side. Ayaka's Super Saiyan 3 state was already at its peak. Her combat strength was not comparable to Honya. If Ayaka was here, this Janemba might not have dared to be so presumptuous. Take all the injured people away from here, Honya suddenly said calmly. Looked deeply at her and nodded forcefully. At this time, letting the injured people stay here was just a meaningless sacrifice. Then she quickly took away Son Goku, Lancey, Piccolo, and the others. Janemba looked on coldly, but he would not let her get what she wanted. He suddenly flashed and blocked in front of her. I'll hold him back. Kamehameha. Honya panicked and waved her hand to release a large amount of energy to entangle Janemba. Boom! 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 The sky shook and the earth shook. The momentum was like a rainbow. In an instant, the majestic energy turned into a little bright mist, spreading out like waves. The silent and sticky sky immediately set off layers of strange ripples. In an instant, it spread far away. At this time, the center of the lookout had been overloaded, and the whole building was shaking violently. Dend looked at the lookout in panic. The defense of the earth has reached its limit. If this goes on, the lookout will collapse. The current state of the lookout was really worrying, as if it would collapse in a few seconds. Ka-cha. Small cracks began to appear, and then expanded rapidly. Soon, the originally magnificent temple was riddled with scars and could not bear the burden. In this regard, Dend and Mr. Popo could only be anxious and had no solution. In fact, the most direct and effective way to stop the collapse of the lookout was to stop the damage to the earth and solve the symptoms and the root of the problem. However, this was almost impossible. Not to mention that Launch was seriously injured and could not use teleportation. Even if she used teleportation, it was very easy to be disturbed by the energy. It was impossible to send Janemba out of the earth. Rapid energy cannon. Janemba smiled. His strength, defense, speed, attack, and destructive power increased several times. The dark vitality turned into a fierce dragon. He punched and roared. The power was very powerful. Honya shuddered and her pupils contracted, but she could not retreat. She could only face the difficulties. Thunder shock surprise. Shio. It just so happened that returned after sending the injured person out. Looking at the golden figure that was fighting Janemba, Honya gritted her teeth and rushed forward. Honya had already used up more than half of her ki. In order to break through Janemba's rapid energy cannon, she had used up a lot of it. Right now, her ki was less than 30% of what she was at her peak. With joining in, Honya had a slight chance to catch her breath. Although the battle just now did not cause any damage to Janemba, it was not without any gains. At least she had used this opportunity to find out Janemba's ability. The second form of Janemba was definitely a powerful existence. Super Saiyan 3 like her was no match for him, but it was not much stronger. Janemba's evolution was because he absorbed Skinny Bu and obtained the same type of evil source. That was why he had a cross-legged growth. However, do not forget that Skinny Bu he absorbed was not the complete Majin Bu. Although there was a large leap, it was still within the large framework. He was still below the peak of Super Saiyan 3. After understanding Janemba's strength, Honya finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although even Son Goku was not his match, she knew that Janemba was strong, but he was not strong enough to be as strong as and Piccolo. As long as or Piccolo had won on Earth, Janemba would not be able to be arrogant. Unfortunately, the two people who could deal with him were not on Earth. Wow! While Honya was resting, Vegeta and both stepped forward. However, the gap between them and Janemba was too big. With a flash, they were sent flying again. It turned out that although Vegeta was also seriously injured, he had never left. In comparison, Son Goten, a good seedling, was much weaker. In Hongye's opinion, there was an absolute difference in their wills. In the air, Janemba had seen the strength of Super Saiyan 3 and was full of confidence in himself. How could he put Vegeta and Iam, the two Super Saiyan 2, in his eyes? In the distance, his face was full of ridicule, and his eyes were full of contempt. Janemba's undisguised contempt caused Vegeta's proud heart to be fiercely stabbed. His hands and fists were constantly trembling. Ah! A roar that seemed to have gone mad, a strong sense of humiliation welled up in his heart. He was the Prince of Saiyan. He had actually been looked down upon. Moreover, he had been beaten to the point where his skin was all over. Suddenly, a sparkling and dazzling light burst out, followed by a vast and drawn-out energy. From weak to solid, in the next moment, with a crashing sound, rings of clear ripples spread out. Golden light burned fiercely, and another huge energy source appeared in the world. Janemba looked at him with a strange expression and was slightly moved. Super Saiyan 3. Hongye was delighted. Vegeta had actually broken through to Super Saiyan 3 at this time. Although he might not be able to deal with Janemba, it was still better than nothing. Crack! Crack! Silver electric arcs intertwined. Vegeta, who was in Super Saiyan 3, stood there majestically. Although his clothes were tattered and full of wounds, it added a violent and powerful charm. Super Saiyan 3. Iam smacked her lips a few times, her eyes filled with envy. Vegeta calmly experienced the abundant strength in his body and revealed a confident smile. I finally caught up with Kakarot. Janemba, if you hadn't made me completely angry, I wouldn't have become a Super Saiyan 3 so quickly. But the humiliation you gave me, I will pay it back several times over. Boom! A dull sound of air breaking rang out. Sand and dust flew in the air, creating a thick wave of air. Vegeta instantly turned into a ray of light and disappeared. He once again appeared in front of Janemba. Crack! A powerful force attacked. Janemba was sent flying for a moment. Vegeta chased after him relentlessly. He immediately launched a combo attack. Pa! A flash of light flashed in the air. Due to the speed of the attack, only a series of deep and huge sounds of impact could be heard. What followed was the scene of space twisting. The howling wind circled around. They were extremely fast. Once they fought, they quickly separated. In just 1 second, they had fought countless times. Iam looked at him in surprise and shouted, Vegeta is actually following Janemba, fighting equally. Hongye nodded. She looked on silently, but she was not very optimistic. Her vision was higher and she saw something deeper. Vegeta had just become a Super Saiyan 3. The reason why he was fighting Janemba was because of his anger and his confidence after transforming into Super Saiyan 3. But after all, he relied on his anger to explode. His foundation was not as deep as Janemba. After a long time, when the anger dissipated and he could not attack for a long time, his confidence would be lost. At that time, Vegeta would be defeated. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Vegeta began to lose his strength and gradually fell to the bottom. At this time, even if Hongye and Iam attacked together, in the case of energy loss, they were definitely not Janemba's match. Bang! Janemba sneered with a cold expression. His thumb curved like a hook as he shouted at Vegeta. Immediately, it was as if a wall of air smashed down. Vegeta was forcefully smashed down. Pooh! The earth trembled and a huge collapse was smashed out. In the huge pit, a golden light rose up. Vegeta jumped up several times in a row. His sweat and blood mixed together. He stood quietly at the side, panting heavily. Vegeta's energy has suddenly dropped by a lot. As they fought, Hongye's gaze flickered, knowing that Vegeta, who had vented his anger, was already at the end of his tether. This is great. After wasting so much time, let the entire planet turn into the dust of the universe with you. The blood-red figure of Demon stood in the sky, his hands waving, and his palms condensed a dark energy that made people tremble. Explosive wave. Rapid energy cannon. The dark origin energy in his left hand gathered together, forming a massive ball of darkness with astonishing energy. His right hand was not idle either. The dark energy transformed into a dark divine dragon that bared its fangs and brandished its claws. It drew its bow left and right and threw it towards Earth. Whoosh! 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 Two waves of destructive energy whistled over with an unstoppable momentum. They were like stars falling from the stars, flashing with a bright and beautiful brilliance like poppy. Beautiful, yet it made one despair. Hongye, Vegeta, and the others were shocked when they saw Janemba's two great moves. If they struck, the Earth would instantly turn into dust in the universe. Fight! Hongye did not think too much about it. She gritted her teeth and flew towards the place where the dark energy ball landed. She stretched out her arms and tried to catch it. On the other side, Vegeta and Iam also understood the urgency of the situation. They stopped and flew in another direction. They raised their heads and looked at the black dragon that was roaring towards them. It gradually approached. The dragon's eyes were ferocious. Its dark black scales glowed with oil, as if they were real. Ha ha ha. Janemba couldn't help but shake his head and sneer when he saw them struggle to the death. His two big moves had a strong destructive power, and it was not something that the three disabled people could withstand. A depressing atmosphere continued to descend. The huge energy ball formed by dark energy approached the ground. The surging energy pressed down on the surface of the air and scattered to both sides. Under the pressure, the ground began to collapse. It's starting. Hongye took a deep breath and said to herself silently. Open your arms, success or failure will depend on this. The air around his body suddenly burst out, block it for me. Thunder shock surprise. The sparkling electric arc constantly flickered. A vast energy, accompanied by a deep blue light, suddenly soared into the sky like a storm. In an instant, thunder and lightning gushed endlessly and crashed straight into the huge dark energy ball. With a muffled sound, the sky distorted, and layers of fragmented lines radiated strangely. Boom boom. The thunder shock surprise, turning ki into electricity, reached the final profound meaning of martial arts. Hongye's ki immediately began to be continuously extracted like a water pump. With the support of the follow-up power, the power of the thunder shock surprise became even stronger. Pop! There was a light sound that could not be heard. A small hole was broken through the thin membrane on the surface of the dark energy ball. Thunder shock surprise. Kamehameha. Iam didn't hesitate to increase her energy at all costs. As the saying goes, a spurt of energy could be used to replenish her energy. The sparkling and bright blue lightning seemed even more spirited. It rushed into the dark energy ball like a drill, destroying the energy ball from the inside to the outside. Ha! Janemba frowned. A moment later. Boom! 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 The balance within the black energy was destroyed. The sphere suddenly expanded and turned into scattered smoke that spread out in a large area. The darkness finally collapsed and disappeared with the simplest and crudest explosion. Janemba did not move his eyes and said indifferently, interesting. He blocked it. Hongye smiled bitterly. Her body was on the verge of collapse, and her face was pale. The golden light flickered weakly a few times, and her hair color returned to red. Now, she no longer had any excess energy to support her body. With a plop, she fell to the ground. The moment she fell, she saw the scene on the other side of Korin Tower in the distance. Thunder Shock Surprise. Kamehameha. The two attacks were magnificent and twisted together, blocking the powerful rapid energy cannon. The black dragon rested in the air for a long time before it finally disappeared helplessly. The aftermath of the explosion of energy also injured Vegeta and Iam. The two of them spat out blood and flew backwards, losing their fighting strength like Hongya. Janemba looked at the heroic people with a dull expression. A violent and bloodthirsty killing intent spread out. He said with interest, "You actually blocked my attack without caring about the consequences. It really surprised me. Unfortunately, even so, it only delayed the time of death. Alright, the game is over. Be obedient and die." As he spoke, he began to gather his strength. The pressure in the surroundings continued to rise. Hongya, who had already lost her ability to move, laughed bitterly, thinking that she had really fallen this time. "Wait." A simple and honest voice suddenly sounded. "Who is it this time?" Janemba's calm gaze suddenly rippled. This situation indicated that he was a little angry. Just think about it. How good could his mood be after being messed up repeatedly? Looking sideways, he saw the pink figure of Fat Bu appear below. Majin Bu? Why did this guy only appear now? Janemba recognized that the fat figure was the kind side of the Majin Bu, but he secretly felt pity in his heart. If it were for the evil Bu, it would be good. Then he could continue to absorb him to increase his strength. Janemba was different from Majin Bu. The ancient demon could ignore the attributes and devour crazily, and then digest them. Majin Bu could only devour and merge but could not completely digest them. Janemba could only choose darkness or evil life to devour. In nature, Janemba was more picky than the Majin. "Do you want to go to the underworld with me?" Janemba said expressionlessly. Fat Bu smiled honestly. His round head kept shaking like a rattle drum. He looked at Janemba and hesitated for a moment. He couldn't understand why he ran out when he was hiding at the side. At this moment, he regretted it a little. I forgot what I was going to do. I'll go first. Goodbye." In front of everyone, Fat Bu thought seriously for a moment. He finally understood that he was unnecessary here. That red guy was so strong. Didn't he see that Super Saiyan 3 was defeated? Let's go. Fat Bu shook his fat body and wanted to leave this troublesome place. This fool. Hongya and Vegeta cursed at the same time. What a brain. Did he think he could just leave like this? Janemba revealed a playful smile. How could he let Fat Bu do as he wished? His body swayed quickly, blocking in front of Fat Bu. "Since you're here, let me send you to the underworld to report." There's really no need. Fat Bu's head was steaming, and his eyes narrowed into a line. "Don't mention it, it will be very soon." Janemba laughed. Suddenly, a young girl's pleasant voice drifted over, "Since she is unwilling, don't force her." "Who is it?" Janemba roared with a low face. Turning around, he saw a young girl with long hair floating 30 centimeters above the ground near the empty ruins. "Sister. Mom. I am." Hongya, Iam, and Vegeta exclaimed in surprise. When Fat Bu saw Iam, his body trembled. He turned his head away with lingering fear. Iam had left a deep impression on him. She was a bad person who liked to beat people up. Janemba was thinking about her identity when he saw the long-haired girl sway a few times. She appeared in front of Hongya and the others. She crouched down and handed over a few immortal beans for them to swallow. Although these immortal beans could not restore their strength immediately, they could remove all the pain in their bodies. When Hongya and the others stood up again, Iam turned her gaze to Janemba. The red figure, the evil aura that never disperses, it is indeed Janemba. No wonder Hongya and the others are not a match for him. While sizing up Janemba, Janemba also stared deeply at her. His black pupils contracted and he frowned. He was full of doubt. For some reason, the other party gave him an illusory feeling. This feeling of being unable to control caused his heart to become chaotic. Pop! Janemba shouted in frustration and charged at Iam. Be careful. Hongye shouted worriedly. Don't worry. Iam turned around and revealed a faint smile. Just as Janemba arrived in front of her and waved his arm at her, she suddenly bent her thumb and pointed it at the air. Bang! Janemba's entire body trembled and his attack stopped. Then, under Janemba's stiff face, he flipped his hand in disbelief. His nimble fingers circled around a smooth arc and grabbed Janemba's arm. Shit! Janemba was shocked, his eyes splitting. Bang! The force of 1 inch burst out from his fingers. The whole movement was simple and smooth. Janemba bounced back without any surprise. The strong and fierce force spread along his arm. In a moment, his organs rolled over and his bones were broken. At this time, Ayaka drew a straight line and rushed to the front of Janemba, who was constantly retreating. He raised his hand and with a light, poochie sound, Janemba was hit in another direction by the waist. Boom! He cupped his fists, and a fist descended from the sky, smashing Janemba to the ground. Hongye, Ling Meng, and Vegeta watched with their mouths agape. Their 3 pairs of eyes were perfectly round, and they gasped. The scene in front of them was too shocking. The powerful and terrifying waves of evil thoughts were actually unable to fight back in Ling Ye's hands. Mom is so powerful. Iam's eyes flashed with starlight as she said in worship. This is the evil thoughts wave. It's just a so-so. It's several times stronger than the evil thoughts wave, but it is not impossible to deal with. Ayaka muttered as she casually tossed the limp Janemba to the side. This action was natural and unrestrained. It severely struck the hearts of Hongye, Iam, and Vegeta. In fact, Ayaka was also very surprised. Originally, she had thought that there would be a fierce battle. However, after the real battle, she discovered that Janemba was not as powerful as she had imagined. She immediately laughed at herself. Janemba's strength was already several times greater than Benito. He was also much stronger than Majin Buu. The reason why she could easily deal with him was because she had unknowingly become so strong. Perhaps my strength has already surpassed Uncle Bardock by a lot. Ayaka had not had a specific battle in the past few years, so she was somewhat uncertain about her own training. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep you updated for future uploads.